Hey guys, Justin Lippert here, professional triathlete and A-Squared ambassador. Today, I'm going to walk you through the race setup on my A-Squared Speed Phreak. It's set up right now how I would race it before adding any nutrition or hydration. Let's start with the wheels. Currently on the bike is a pair of Swiss side Hadron Ultimate 800 millimeter wheels, front and back, so it's 80 mil deep, both in the front and in the rear. This is what I would race probably 95% of the time. If I was racing Kona, it's really windy coming down from Hawaii. I experienced that last year. I'd probably go with something shallower in the front, maybe like a 60 or a 50. And then if I was racing a really technical sprint distance race, I might go with some shallower rims just with all the cornering and maybe, accelerations out of corners. But 95% of the time, whether it's a sprint, Olympic, half, or a full, I'll probably be racing this setup. Now the brake pads that go with the Swiss side wheels are the Swiss Stop Black Prince brake pads. And I gotta say, they're pretty damn good. I've ridden some really good carbon braking and some really bad carbon braking rims in the past. And this is right up there with some of the best. So braking performance is really good with these wheels and these pads. The Swiss side Hadron Ultimates, they have ceramic bearings and DT Swiss 240 hubs, so they're gonna roll smooth. Really little rolling resistance. Now let's talk about tire choice. The tires I'm wearing right now are the Specialized Turbo Cotton in 25 millimeter. These are reportedly the fastest tires that Specialized makes, and in independent tests, they're some of the fastest tires out there. Paired with that, on the inside, it's not a sexy upgrade, but it's a fast upgrade, are latex tubes. Minimal rolling resistance, you'll save a lot of watts for very little money by upgrading to latex tubes. So while you can't see it, it is an upgrade that makes you go faster, and I will definitely be racing with latex tubes underneath these tires on these wheels. Another aero upgrade that I have are bolt-on skewers. So again, that just improves aerodynamics a little bit by removing the big quick release lever on the skewer, both in the front and in the rear. Moving on to the rest of the bike, we'll just start from the front end and kind of go backwards. So the front brake, we just got your Ultegra direct mount front brake. Great stopping power, great modulation. It's a big step up over the 105 for not that much extra price. So Ultegra front brake is where it's at for me. Just got your, standard carbon base bar, aerodynamic, kind of truncated airfoil shape. For the group set that we got going on, we got the Shimano Dura Ace Di2 with synchro shift. So, that takes all the thinking out of shifting. You just press a button on the left side of the bike, it makes it easier. You press a button on the right side of the bike, it makes it harder. Now, an important aspect of aerodynamics is cable management, which the Speed Phreak does really well. So, the way I've ran the cables through this bike, none of them are exposed to the wind. As you can see from a head-on view, you can't see any of the cables. I have them routed around and behind the pedestals that come up from the base bar. And for the brake levers, I have a Y-wire. So both brake levers are connected via the same Y-wire to a junction D box that fits here underneath the stem. Also, both brake housing cables run through the stem. So ultimately, it gives you a very clean front end setup with no cables exposed to the wind. This is what it looks like from my view, so you can see the cables back here, but again, they're hidden from the wind and it gives that really clean look. If you're going to spend all this time training and racing triathlon, your bike better look good, and you better have good cable management, or else nothing really matters. It's got to look good. So a nifty thing about the Speed Phreak is the stem. It actually can fit a junction D box inside of it. So what I've done is I've put that junction D box in there, and I've wired both brake levers together into one port using a Y-split wire. That leaves the other 3 ports open. So one of them is used for the left TT shifter, one for the right TT shifter. And then the final port gets a cable to run all the way from the junction box in the stem, down the down tube, and into another junction B box that's hidden right above the bottom bracket. And that second junction B box, we connect the rear derailleur, the front derailleur, and another Y-split wire that comes down from the seat post, which has the battery, and the junction A box underneath the seat. Moving on to the frame itself, it's the A-squared Speed Phreak frame. It's an aggressive frame, which means it's long and low, so it's got a low stack, and it's also really long. So you can see how high I have to pedestal up to get my aero bars into my position. Other TT bikes I've had, I've actually had to slam the bars as low as I could go, and I still couldn't get low enough. So this is definitely in the category of aggressive frame. It's also very long, so there's no issue with getting long enough in your reach measurement. It has bosses on the top tube for a bento box. It has 2 bottle cage bosses, one on the down tube and one on the seat tube. It's got a BSA English threaded bottom bracket, and the rear brake is hidden underneath the bottom bracket. Moving on to the pedals and the crankset, we'll start with the pedals. These are the Speedplay Zero Aero pedals. They are, pretty much just the most aerodynamic pedals on the market, so that's why I'm using them. I have a rotor crankset with 155 millimeter crank arms. A big trend in triathlon bike fitting is shorter crank arms. So it allows you to reduce your hip angle and get in a more comfortable, power producing, and aerodynamic position all at the same time. I have the Rotor InSpider power meter, which is a spider-based power meter. So that power meter is right in between the crank arm and the chain rings themselves. For chain rings, I have a 54 by 42 tooth double chain ring. If you're thinking 54 is not big enough, just remember my crank arms are 155 millimeters, which makes the effective chainring size about a 56, a little over 56 compared to a more standard crank arm size. If you're wondering why that is, there's a lot of math behind it. It's beyond the scope of this video, but just look into gain ratio. There's gear ratio, and then there's gain ratio, which takes into account the length of crank arms. So I am turning over a pretty big chainring, ladies. Right here we got the Endura Ace Di2 front derailleur. That's what it is, nothing too special about that. Moving on, let's take a look at the chain. So I actually I wax my chain. It's not anything you can buy on the market. It is a homebrew wax concoction. Wax is faster. It has increased longevity, so it doesn't wear down your components as fast as an oil-based lubricant will. So your chain rings and your preset and your jockey wheels and the chain itself are all going to last longer. It's lower friction, so like I said, it's faster. You're saving watts, and it's clean. Look at this. I've probably ridden a couple 100 miles on this chain without cleaning it since my last waxing, and it's clean as a whistle. Moving even to rear derailleur. Moving even further back, we have the Endura Ace Di2 rear derailleur. Electrical tape is your best friend. I had a wire that was just hanging a little bit loose, so little electrical tape tightens that right up. It looks good. Like I said, cable management, pretty important thing, both for aerodynamics, but mainly it looks good. And you want to look good out there. For the cassette, we got Shimano Endura Ace cassette. It's extremely light. They don't necessarily last that long, but it is a performance-oriented product, so you're giving up a little longevity in the cassette for some performance. It's lighter and therefore faster. Again, we have bolt-on skewers in the rear, just saving a little bit of aerodynamics. Also, they're pretty light, so save some grams as well. And then moving up top, we have the Physique Mystica saddle. Just a saddle that works well with my body. I've tried a couple other saddles, but I always come back to the Mystica, and I seem to like that really well. So this is what I would call my naked race bike. This is before we add any nutrition and hydration. So if I was racing a super sprint race, this is probably how I would do it. But let me show you what I would do if I were to race a sprint and I needed to bring one bottle with me. All right, so the first place I would add a water bottle is in between the arms right here. It's one that has a straw. Bottles are pretty invisible when you put them in between your arms. There's very little to negligible aerodynamic impact for doing so. What the straw does is the straw allows you to drink without needing to leave your aero position. You don't need to pull the bottle out of the cage. The straw is just right there, so you can stay in your aero position. Hold that for longer and just drink straight out of the straw. I would use this one bottle setup definitely for a sprint distance race when you really only need one bottle. I would also use it on an Olympic distance race if it was a colder day. I'd probably only go through one bottle, and I would include my nutrition and my hydration in that bottle. So something like SIS Beta Fuel that has nutrition, hydration all in one, or like a Mart 10, or even just squeeze some gels right into water or electrolyte mix. For an Olympic distance race, that I would need to bring 2 bottles. The second bottle I would put right here on the down tube. So there you have it, secondary bottle placement right on the down tube. There's always going to be a debate between what's more aerodynamic, a bottle on the down tube or a bottle on the seat tube if you're only going to be carrying one bottle. My opinion, it's probably a negligible difference. So what settles the debate for me is that it's a lot easier for me to pull the bottle out and return it back to the bottle cage when it's on the down tube. So that means I'm spending less time out of my aerodynamic position. I have better control of the bike. I'm not having to get up as far. It's just easier in and out, so you're going to save time that way. So that's why the down tube wins my secondary bottle placement. Again, I would use this 2-bottle setup for most Olympic distance races. And then if we're moving on to a 70.3 or half iron distance race, that's when I would add that 3rd bottle on the seat tube. So there you have it, tertiary bottle placement. That's the 3rd place I would put a bottle right on the down tube. Again, this would be for half Ironman 70.3 distance racing when you need 3 bottles. Now, when you step up to the half Ironman distance, you're also going to need to bring gels or some other kind of food, nutrition with you other than just your bottles. So that's where these 2 bosses come in handy. You can attach a bento box up here that can carry gels or blocks or whatever your nutrition of choice is. So once I get up to 70.3 distance racing, I add the bento box. So here it is with the bento box attached. That way I can carry gels or whatever nutrition it is that I need for the half Ironman distance race. This is also the same exact setup I would use for an Ironman distance race. The only difference being you need to bring so many gels with you for Ironman distance. I would dedicate my 3rd bottle placement on the seat tube as my gel bottle. So basically I would take all the gels I'm going to need during the Ironman and squeeze them all into this bottle. That way during the race I just take that and squeeze each gel into my mouth as needed. That leaves space in the bento box for an Ironman distance race. I might even probably think about bringing a flat kit, an extra tube and a CO2, just because you never know. And in an Ironman distance race, a few minutes to change a flat, that's not the end of the world, honestly. As I was putting this bento box on, I also realized I put this bottle in backwards. The bottle cage is on backwards. So everybody take a minute and laugh at my mistake. Thank you. I'll get it right on race day, I promise. And that's it. That's everything. That's my A Squared Speed Phreak race setup. Everything from naked race setup, sprint distance racing, all the way up to 3 bottles and a bento box for 70.3 and full Ironman distance racing. It's a great frame. It's a great bike. These are great wheels. I mean, everything is top notch on this. The only difference really between a bike like this and one of those super bikes that you see out there usually comes in the form of integration. So you'll have the stem and the handlebars and the aero bars all integrated into one piece, and you might have some integrated nutrition or hydration storage. But other than that, this is pretty damn nice, pretty damn fast bike that rides well. So I'm excited to get out there and race it once we're able to start racing. If you're watching this from the future, we're in the 2020 coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, so there's no racing going on. What are you going to do? And that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Again, I'm Justin Lippert, professional triathlete and A-Squared ambassador. If you have any questions about the bike, about my setup, or about how you can optimize your setup on race day, please let me know. If there's any other videos you'd like to see, also let me know. If you want to buy this bike, a2bikes.com. If you want to buy me,